My name is Straight Up. My world is fire and blood and bullshit.
Fury Road is feminist garbage.
Why are the women slaves?
Max barely talks in this movie.
Once, I was a reviewer. A film warrior fighting for a righteous cause.
All they do is show scenes. Where's the exposition?
Furiosa's no hero at all, she just does guy stuff.
Why wasn't Mel in this movie?
As the net fell, each of us in our own way was broken. It was hard to tell who was crazy, me or everyone else.
Max should have been the main character. It's in his
Here
name.
they come again.
All it is violent,
Women into
misogynist,
the black
CGI
matter that
garbage.
is my brain.
What was the point of Do For You?
This
I tell
movie
myself
should not have been made at all.
They cannot touch me. They are long since irrelevant.
I don't have a car. Welcome to Share It Reviewers. There's no bullshit beyond the sign. I say the best for last, as I'm going to talk about Fear Up. As for why I'm doing it now instead of after its debut, well, I wanted to wait a year after its release so that it sunk in with everyone, and there'd be no reason not to see it. Now, since its release, there's been a lot of praise and scorn for this movie, for various reasons. But before I get into that, let's take a look. Light spoiler.
Fury Road is the fourth installment of George Miller's Mad Max series. Said series became the debut of both Miller and his then lead actor at the time, Mel Gibson.
To hear more about those three, watch my previous reviews. Ever since Thunderdome, the fourth movie was in development hell, and almost was abandoned until 2015. I myself was hesitant to see this movie because I was a fan of the first two, and I didn't like the idea of anyone other than Mel playing Max, controversies aside. But I'll get to that later. After seeing the trailer, though, I was hooked. But what is it all about?
The film begins with an opening narration. While not much is known continuity-wise, it's been hinted that the apocalypse surrounding the first three movies has escalated into a nuclear war.
This one made me kind of iffy. Don't get me wrong. If anyone can do a realistic portrayal of a post-nuclear wasteland, the former E.R. Miller could. But before this apocalypse was more or less based on societal collapse and deprived resources, hence why the many people in the original often just fight for gasoline and ammo.
Max, played by Tom Hardy, is reunited with his interceptor long before being captured by the War Boys, a group of lymphoma-infected warriors that strive to die a warrior's death and go to Valhalla. Max himself has been captured for the sole purpose of providing fresh blood to the sick boys, as he is not only one of the few not affected with diseases, but he's also a universal donor.
Even when he himself insists he's not important, his blood tells him otherwise.
The War Boys live in the Citadel, which is a feudal-like society whose main resources are produce, milk,
And I will not show you where the milk comes from on good conscience.
and most importantly, one of the few freshwater wells left in the world. Their leader, Immortan Joe, played by Toe Cutter himself, Hugh Keys Byrne, controls the water directly, much to the dismay of the people locked outside who only get a few drops.
Funnily enough, that actually may happen in the future one day.
Imperator Furiosa, played by Charlize Theron, is called by Immortan Joe on a supply run to Gastown. However, Furiosa has plans of her own when she takes a detour. It turns out she has taken the 5 wives, a personal unwanted harem of Immortan Joes comprised of 5 women who have been captured and enslaved in order to produce a viable child to take his place long after he's gone.
And if you thought the milk was disturbing, Miller wrote a lot of backstory behind the atrocities Joe did to these wives. I'm not going to give much away both of the spoilers and just the fact that it's disturbing, but read the tie-in comics, it's really fucked up.
Eventually, Joe, through his son Corpus Colossum, finds out about their escape plan and summons everyone from all 3 factions of the Citadel to find him. Naturally, of course, this includes Nux, who has Max in tow as his blood bag. The chase also takes the time to introduce more characters in the mix, including but not limited to the Doof Warrior.
While Doof Warrior is considered an awesome character in his own right, many question his point in the movie.
Nux and his friend Slip manage to get ahead of the others and find Furiosa attacked by a rogue group called the Buzzards, so they end up working together to fight them off.
That's one of the things I liked about the movie. Even though Nux' main mission is to capture Furiosa and the wives, he's willing to help them fight against the mutually hated enemy.
When the fight is over, Nux and Furiosa head into the sandstorm, where Nux, in an attempt to slow the truck down, tries to suicide bomb his car into it. However, Max stops him in time and they both crash in the desert, which is not good for Max as he's still chained and muzzled, and no one has a key. So he goes to Furiosa's truck, the War Rig, to demand water and bolt cutters. After a brief struggle and a poor escape attempt, Furiosa offers Max a deal: help her and she'll get the muzzle off. Max obliges and they head for a safe spot known only as the Green Place.
There's more, but you may want to watch the movie and find out for this one. Now, as I've said, while this movie received tons of praise, there's been a lot of negative reception on all sides of the net regarding it. So I'm going to finish this review by debunking every single one.
Fury Road is feminist garbage.
First of all, not every movie involving female protagonists involves radical feminism in any way. The closest you can get is implied through the actions of the characters, and even then, it's just dismissed as it is introduced. However, in the case of Fury Road, much of the accusation lies in the fact that it involves an equally badass female protagonist trying to save women from a human trafficking dictator. Now, if you were to base your assumption on that alone, there's a word for that: stupid. Now, does this movie have messages of feminism? Sort of.
From what I gathered, George Miller hired Eve Ensler to help him better portray the female characters of the movie. For those that don't know, Ensler was most famous for writing the vagina monologues, which received criticism from feminists as well, despite it and the author being feminists herself.
But when you get down to it, the topic is actually beyond feminism, in a way, because all the characters, both good and evil, are slaves in their own way.
Max is a slave to his own guilt for losing the people he tried to protect as a cop, and the guilt forces him into isolation, where he will continue to suffer until he takes his calling as a hero. Furiosa is a slave to her own need to redeem herself for her past crimes.
Oh, I didn't mention that? Well, seeing how she's an imperator, or in layman's terms, a former high-ranking member of Joe's Armada, she would have had to have done terrible, horrible, disgusting things to attain that title. And her rescuing the 5 wives could be her first step at redeeming herself.
Nux is a slave to his need to make his death meaningful. Rictus and Corpus are slaves to the need to impress their father despite their disadvantages in his view. Even Joe himself, as evil as disgusting as he is a slave to his own bullshit. There are times when he himself believed his own lies.
So when I say sort of, the messages are there, but they aren't as in your face about it as most examples. And for those complaining about the slaves, you can't resolve the conflict in the story without having said conflict to begin with. If that were the case, then there'd be no such thing as movies in general, or media in general.
Max is not a main character.
Now, this is a legit complaint, but at the same time not one. Many people always assume that because their name is in the title, they are obviously the main character. However, there have been many examples before Mad Max where it wasn't the case.
Tron. While the title character himself is a total badass, he has less screen time, and both movies revolve around members of the Flynn family. Tommy. While Tommy is the main character, much of the musical revolves around his friends and family trying to cure his catatonia. And lest we forget, one of the most long-running successful video game franchises of all time, The Legend of Zelda. This one is a bit tricky. While you don't play as Zelda in most of the games, she has had some influence and involvement in the adventures Link has over the years, with her role getting more and more involved in the later series. The best example would be in Twilight Princess, where she pretty much is providing you cover fire while you chase down Ganondorf.
Kind of like how Max provided cover fire when Furiosa needed his help. The other complaint was that since Furiosa had more presence than Max, the movie should be named after her. 3 things wrong with that. 1, the movie is told in Max's perspective, hence his narration in the opening. 2, she just got introduced. It'd be like saying that Iron Man 2 should be called Black Widow the movie. It's called a poorly disguised pilot. These characters are introduced in the same world as the other main characters, and much of why they've been regarded as the best part is so that they too could have a series of their own. As for reason 3, that leads me to my final point in this one. Max has never been a main character since the first movie. Some people who cite the original trilogy forget that while Max is the main character, he has no involvement to the story save for being a helping hand. None of the conflicts he faces in the movies were ever his conflicts. The bad guys are next to unaware of his existence as an enemy to them, nor would they care because they would just try to kill him. It's also why he doesn't talk much in the movie, because he has no reason to unless he's addressed. People complain about that a lot, but when you look at the lines in every movie that involve his dialogue only, you can barely make a monologue out of them.
The movie has no story.
Just because nobody is talking a mile a minute about certain plot points, like every other fucking movie we've seen in the past 2010s, does not mean they don't have a story to tell. Hell, before they decided to add dialogue in it, this movie was going to be one of the first silent movies in almost a century. There's a version of it available on Blu-ray. Check it out and see the difference. But the entire point of Fury Road, and to an extent the Mad Max movies, is how much it relies on show don't tell. Rather than listening, you should all be looking. Each scene, if one were to take the stills of it, will look like a painting in a gallery somewhere. Now, after hearing about this, I want you to do something. Look at every movie you've seen over the years, but actually look at it in the same perspective you should look at this movie, without anyone telling you jack shit in the movie, no dialogue, mute it if you have to. You'll see it in a whole new light, I guarantee it. What wasn't given to the ears was given to the eyes.
Furious only does guy stuff.
Now, this particular complaint I don't like one bit. Since when is operating a gun, or a car, or performing heroic feats considered guy stuff? Plenty of women can and have done it too. Weapons and vehicles have no gender identity, no matter how phallic they look. Also, Furious is an amputee, so way to destroy the hopes of other amputees in the process.
Mel Gibson's not in this movie.
Now, I admit, I'd be among those people too, but in a way, there really wasn't any way to get him to return to the franchise. The movie was in development hell while he was still a valid star, and while that was going on, Gibson started to flip-flop between reformed and controversial due to many instances I will not list. But I'm with Downey on this one. He's hugged the cactus long enough. But with that said, George did want him to get involved, and have him at least do a cameo as a drifter, bringing his casting joke to full circle. For those who don't know what I meant, during the entire series, Miller has had at least one or two members of the cast of the movies, and have them appear in different roles. The big example being Bruce Spence playing the gyro captain in Road Warrior, and a similar looking Robert Pilot in Thunderdome. So it would have been funny if Mel appeared in the recent movie as a character similar looking to Mad Max to bring it around.
This movie uses too much CGI.
Wow, that is bullshit. There was only one scene that was CGI heavy, and that was the sandstorm scene. Everything else was practical and camera tricks. The explosions were real. The crashes were real. Even the Duke Warrior's guitar shoots out real flames. That thing isn't just a fake prop either. It weighs so much that it, along with the actor playing it, had to be suspended on bungee harnesses in order to carry and play it.
What was the point of Doof Warrior?
This one is minor compared to the others so far. Miller himself stated that he wanted to make it look like a modern-day version of an old-fashioned war group. Anyone who's seen the movies ranging from Civil War era to World War II would know that those groups often have a marching band playing music to boost their morale. So naturally, to make it more modern, they replaced the drums and flutes with a full rock band.
This movie is misogynist.
This one made me laugh, as never have I seen a movie where people argue on both sides of the negative point, that it could be either misandrist or misogynistic. Now, in all seriousness, this particular complaint is based off the betrayal of the villains, Joe and his gang, which, to say the least, is over the top. Which in turn gave said complainers the impression that the movie was trying to make misogyny seem okay and funny due to its cartoonish over-the-top nature. However, there are two things wrong with complaining about it, by the way. One, Joe is the villain, so yeah, you have to have a reason to hate him. And two, this one may surprise you, save for Joe and his friends and family, the rest of the villains aren't misogynists, or at the very least believe they are misogynists. And a reason why is that the War Boys were genuinely raised to believe that their life is okay, and often show confusion to why no one would want a life like that. That is called brainwashing. When Nux decided to switch sides, it was because he was convinced that what he and his party did was wrong, and as a result strived to become a better person, even helping others out when they were still willing to shoot him.
It is too violent.
Oh my god, what the fuck is wrong with cinema today? I mean, I came to an R-rated movie not expecting everything that makes an R-rated movie an R-rated movie. Jesus Christ, people are stupid. First of all, Miller would do anything to make sure this movie didn't end up PG-13 like Thunderdome. Second of all, it's fucking Mad Max. The same movie series that showed a mother and her child get run over by bikers. The same movie series to have another child kill a man with a metal boomerang. The same movie series, for despite the PG-13 status, showed a graphic death of a child dying in quicksand. If you go to an R-rated movie, you got what you wanted in an R-rated movie. If you came to a theater just to do this and all the violent scenes, or any scenes for that matter, and then complain about the movie, then I'm sorry. I'm glad the box office ticket guy robbed you. Fury Road is a great movie to watch. The effects are spectacular. The acting is great. The story is great. It may not have won many Oscars, but it deserved the ones it did win. And most importantly, they finally got beyond Thunderdome. As usual, debate, argue, and let me know what I missed. Stay tuned for more.